This podcast episode is made possible by wowdigital.com, your trusted partner for nonprofit and charity website and design. Are you feeling stretched thin trying to manage your nonprofit team? Atiba de Souza is back on the podcast to share proven strategies that boost team productivity, eliminate delegation bottlenecks, help your staff work smarter, hopefully without burning out. So stay tuned and let's unlock your nonprofit's leadership potential. Welcome to the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. I'm your host, David, and in this episode, I'm thrilled and excited to have Atiba de Souza back, and he's mastered the art of turning chaos into clarity, and we're going to be talking about all kinds of things around team performance and leadership. Atiba is your secret weapon when your team is underperforming. As a CEO, strategist, and team productivity expert, he transforms struggling organizations into productivity powerhouses through proven leadership frameworks that deliver immediate results. Atiba, thank you so much for coming back on the show.
Glad to be back and excited to have another great episode with you.
Absolutely. Let's jump in on this. And for leaders of small nonprofits, they've got limited time and budget. They're probably wearing 37 hats. Like, I love your Superman hats that you're always rocking. You know, what's the first step that they should take towards building, ideally, a self-managing, high-performing team?
Well, honestly, breathe. You've got to understand that if you're not breathing, the organization is not breathing. So we got to start there. Let's just slow down for a moment. And after we've slowed down for a moment, David, then we need to look at, in order for this thing to grow, in order for this organization to really have the impact it's designed to have, we need to delegate better to people. Now, what do I mean by that? Well, you're probably delegating right now, and you're probably thinking, well, but I do delegate. But do they come back to you and ask you tons of questions? Do they need your input? Before it's done, do you have to go out and check it and make sure? Do you have to go behind them and make sure that they actually did what you said in the time that you said? Are you thinking about it at night, wondering, are we actually going to get it done? If any of those are true, you're not delegating well. And today, David and I are going to help you solve some of that.
Love that concept. You have to empower your team to be able to make decisions. If people are continually eating your time and coming back to you, oh, what about this? Or what about that? What about this? They don't feel empowered, right? There's a reason that we hire people that we do in our team. We hire them as experts in X, Y, and Z, whatever it happens to be. And yeah, maybe they don't know 100% there, but ideally they are willing to learn and to problem solve and to figure things out. And yes, I really believe that failure shouldn't be thought of as failure. It should be thought of as, this is a lesson, all right? And okay, great. We're doing things, we're moving things forward, and oops, I took a misstep. I posted something to our social account that shouldn't have been there. All right, well, what did you do to correct it? And what can we do to prevent that from happening again down the road? How can we create systems and processes, right? Because that's gonna help make a lot of this easier.
It is, but it doesn't stop there, okay? A lot of us have heard those things before, and a lot of us even believe those things. And a lot of us, but I've tried that. They made the mistake, and we put processes in place, and they still screwed it up. So, blah, that doesn't really work. It's a step in the right direction, but it's also part of what I call the delegation trap, and a series of lies that we've been told about delegation. Look, I used to buy into and believe the 80% rule. Like, if they could do it 80% as well as you, let them do it, it's okay. Come on now. You didn't start your nonprofit for it to be 80% of what you thought it should be. You also didn't start your nonprofit for people to just go make a bunch of mistakes and hope that they cleaned it up. Neither one of those is true, right? And that's where I was. I was there myself several times in several businesses. And about 3.5 years ago, I found a solution, David. And since then, I've been teaching this solution to lots of organizations. And I've been amazed at how it didn't just work for me, but it's working for others, and it's changing the way they lead their organizations, and it's changing the outcomes their organizations are having, and it's breaking them out of the delegation trap.
You have piqued my curiosity. I'm sure that the listeners, the people watching this, are also interested. So Tell us, what is the secret sauce that you've got?
Yeah. So it's called the CASE method. CASE. CASE. The CASE method. I'm not going to sit here and tell you how some radical genius who did decades of research to figure this out. This came about because I had hired a young lady to do a role in the company that I had done for over 20 years. And I was real good at it. Not a real good, I was one of the best in the world at it. And now I needed to train her to do it so I could be free and go do other things. That's what we all do, right? Well, over the first 4 or 5 weeks of her working for us in our weekly meeting, I made her cry several times. That's not good. That's bad, right?
Yep.
And I was frustrated, and I had tried all the delegation things and tactics in these weeks to get her to understand, and she just wasn't understanding, and I was frustrated. Now, I knew she was smart, so I knew I didn't hire the wrong person, but it just wasn't working. And so I came into this meeting, David, one Tuesday morning, and I said to myself, Atiba, we cannot make Christine cry again. And myself answered, but Atiba, I don't know what to do. We've tried everything. And I said, well, dude, we got to do something different. Not having any more direction to myself than that, here's what happened. We started a meeting, and I took a breath when she came on. It was over Zoom. And I asked her, just impromptu, it wasn't planned. I said, Christine, what challenges did you have this week in the task that you were doing? And all of a sudden, she started listing things out and saying things. And I'm listening to her. Okay, I'm hearing all her challenges and I'm writing down what she's saying. And then I said, okay, so I understand your challenges. Can you do me a favor and articulate the steps? Go through, now walk me through every step that you took through the process. And she started doing that. And she's walking me through every minute step that she's taking. Now, I've got the understanding of the challenges that she had in mind, and I'm hearing these steps. And as she's hearing these steps, David, I'm seeing and I'm hearing and I'm feeling that's not the way I would have done it. That was the wrong choice right there. That's why you had that challenge. Now, I'm not saying anything at this point. I'm just listening to her go through all this, but I'm thinking all of this. And by the time she was done, I had a picture in my mind of this is how she thought, and this is how I think. No wonder. And then the epiphany happened of my role is to help her go from thinking over here, the way she is, cross the bridge to thinking the way I think about things. And then she'll have better outcomes. So I asked her to articulate, and that's what's going on. To really drive it home, I asked her the third question. And the third question was this, okay, so I'm gonna choose 4 steps that you took. I wanna study and dive deep in these 4 steps with you. Now, she did way more than 4 steps, but I only chose 4. And that's key, you can't do them all. 4 is the maximum. And I chose some of the steps that she did well, and I chose some of the steps that she didn't do well. And I made her go through and I said, okay, I want you to tell me, what were you thinking about before you started this step? And what did you think the outcome was going to be? And what happened in between? And did you get the results that you wanted? And she's explaining all of this to me. And in the process of explaining it to me, light bulbs are going off in her head. I haven't even said anything yet. She's not crying, she's not learning. And then we wrap up the meeting, and the last question that I end up, and then this one didn't come in the first meeting, this came several weeks later, was the E in CASE. And that was, Christine, what was easier than expected for you with this process this week? Those 4 questions, those 4 little questions have changed everything. Because the thing that we miss, we want to delegate tasks. And we say, do it this way. And the example that you gave earlier even, okay, there was a mistake. Let's put an SOP in place so we can solve that mistake. Well, now they're just following a process. And the thing that they've not learned how to do, David, is think. And when something different comes up, now they have to come back to you and say, but now what? But if we teach them how to think, it gets us freedom. I know it's not rocket science. It's super, super simple, but that's the beauty of it.
I think that's super impactful. And I love the story behind it because it really clearly explains, here's how we can help empower people. A lot of us have our full lives experience. You know, you did that role for 20 years. I've been doing web for over 25 years. There's reason why I do the things that I do, that you do the things that you do in the order that you do, because you have the mistakes, the failures backing you, pushing you towards leaning and learning the right order of things, right? Like if you go back to 7th grade, 8th grade math, when you were learning about bed mass, right? There's the order of operations. If you do something wrong, you're going to get the wrong outcome. So let's reframe and, work through things this way. But there's something that inherently comes from figuring it out on your own, right? And I think that's part of your story there, is empowering your employee, your peer, your colleague to walk through things with you and try to rationalize and figure it out on their own, and having you there to guide, mentor, coach along the way to go, listen, you could do it this way, but what about this, right? And to help empower them to expand their thinking.
Yes.
Right. And I think it's really important. Like, I have mentors and coaches for me. I do mentoring and coaching as well, not just with my team, but other agency owners. And it's important to provide and help, not put constraints around thinking, but quite the opposite, and allow the freedom of thought.
Exactly. Here's a very fundamental thing that so many of us miss. People will support things that they co-create. But so often as leaders in business, we feel like it's our job to create, their job to do. But if we bring them into that creation cycle, they hold on to it and support it and own it more. So yes, that is one of the underlying principles of the case method, right? It's one of the things that's built on, is that principle.
Something that you kind of alluded to there, that I'm just going to put out there, is enabling your team to go and do the things that they think they need to do, or as a team, you've been like, all right, we need to do this thing. Or one of the things that I like to empower my team with is that everybody has their own little pet project to work on. It doesn't have to do with their job or their role in the business, but it does have to have something to do with the company, right?
Yes.
There's a new era, a new version of culture that comes into the business with that, right? They do feel ownership over these things, regardless of how big or minute they are, right? And they have the buy-in, they have the care, they enjoy the environment. There's a lot of people that work their whole lives and it's just a job, right? I don't want my team to feel that way.
That is one of the shifts in leadership. Let's face it, when we were younger, leadership was all about this dogmatic, in charge, tell people what to do, so on and so forth. The world has changed. The world has changed drastically. And as leaders now, our job is to empower them. But the way you empower people is not by telling them what to do, but asking them questions that lead them to the answers they were looking for. Give you another story. This just happened this morning. We were talking before we started on how I've been on calls all morning, right? So this is one of the things that happened in a call this morning. So I'm talking with someone else on the team. And last week when we were chatting, we were brainstorming through an innovative way to solve a challenge that we've been having, right? So this is a process that we've always done. We've always done it this way, but it takes a lot of time. It takes a lot of time, like an entire week, okay, to do one process. And so it's like, okay, how can we speed this up? And how can we use AI in different ways to speed this up for us? And so we brainstormed that last week and we came up with some ideas. And so this week she comes back and we're having a conversation about what she did and so on and so forth and what it produced. And so I case messaged it. Of course, we went through. And so, asked her what challenge. She didn't really have any challenge. She said it worked pretty well the way we had kind of laid it out. I said, okay. She said, I wasn't totally happy with the output it gave, but in terms of the process worked. Because this was literally just a prompt in ChatGPT that she was working with, like just, one or two prompts in there. There wasn't a whole lot in terms of study and going through the articulation of the steps, but we went through the prompt. We did look at it. And then I said, so your challenge is you don't like the output that it gave you in this way. Now, when I read the prompt, I saw the problem right away. I knew exactly what she was missing. And so I just asked her, I said, so you went through, you said you're happy with what it produced quality, but it just didn't produce the quality the way you wanted it. So how do you make that crosswalk? And it was in the process of just asking her that, all of a sudden she thought, and then you could just see the light bulb go off. And she said, oh my gosh, it's in the prompt. I didn't ask it this way. I just need to change it and ask it this way. There it is. We as leaders have to understand that our role is asking questions. We're going to set vision, and then we're going to ask great questions to help people execute and get to that vision. If that's where we have to be, and I'm glad you're there, I know you're there, but that's where we have to be. And that's the message that we want to get out. It's how do you ask questions? The case method is 4 questions, but there are tons of other questions that you need to ask. And we even cover that in the book a little bit. Smack dab in the middle of the book is a whole chapter on understanding how to ask questions and your mentality of the questions that you're asking may be getting you the wrong answer. So it's not just asking questions, but it's asking the right question.
But you touched on something there that we haven't had in the episode yet, which is you have a book coming up.
Yes.
Right? So tell us a little bit about the book, the intent behind it, and I guess the hero story behind it.
So a little while ago, I was in a mastermind, and we had a moment to share, and we were sharing some of the things that were working for us in our business. And I stood up, and what I shared was, I don't answer questions that my employees ask. And the room went into an uproar over that. And over the next couple of days, people kept coming up to me and it was like, oh my gosh, what you said so resonated, because I'm so overwhelmed by people always asking me questions, and my day is just full of answering their questions. And what do you mean? How do you do that? That was the moment in time when I realized we needed to write a book about this. I had taught the case method to a bunch of businesses. I have spoken on stages and keynoted on the case method, but I'd never written about it, not even a blog post. But when that room erupted, and this is a room of very, very successful high-level entrepreneurs, when that room erupted, it said something to me. It said people needed this. And so I set out to write a book, something I thought I would never do, okay? But I set out to write a book, and it's called The Delegation Trap. The Delegation Trap, because we are trapped by delegation. There are lies that we've been told, and we've been told these lies by well-meaning management consultants who have come in and said, this is how you delegate. Start with small things. Don't, build trust and all that kind of crap. And it doesn't work, because if it did, you and I wouldn't be having this conversation right now. And you listening to us wouldn't be listening, because we all would have figured out how to delegate and have the perfect teams. But the stuff that's out there is incomplete. And the case method, which I go through in the Delegation Trap, will help you completely revolutionize the way your organization works.
Love it. Something that I'd like us to talk about for a moment or two is, for small organizations, they need to scale up, right? We need to delegate, they need to delegate, even if it's a virtual assistant popping stuff out. Maybe it's creating a ChatGPT agent to help delegate things to, or speed up, improve process, things like that. Definitely COVID. I feel like I should stop mentioning COVID, actually, because we're a couple years out, right? But COVID really pushed people into remote. I remember my first long-term job. I was there for about 11 years, and my director was like, no, you can't work remotely. Everything I was doing was web. I had an office set up at home. I could do it all. No, you had to come into the office. Anyways, COVID.
Yeah, they wanted eyes on you. Yeah.
Right. I think there's a little bit of micromanagement issue there. I think there's a little bit of personal reflection, pushing, whatever. It doesn't really matter, but definitely remote, hybrid work situations are extremely common. Are there any systems or tools that you found effective for remote and hybrid teams on how they can help stay productive?
Yeah, so it's a great question. And let me tell you, my team has been remote since 2010. So this works. And not only are we remote, we're remote and distributed around the world. And that's the beauty of it, right? Now, the beauty of it also, because it's based in principle, it isn't just based on some nouveau riche tactic. These are based on principles of how humans think, feel, and behave is, and get this is going to sound a little bit counterintuitive right now, but it also works when you're looking at building AI employees. Why? Because we built AI employees to mimic humans. And so sure, you're not going to have a conversation back and forth necessarily with your AI employee like you would with a human, but guess what? When you need to teach an AI employee to do something new or build an AI employee, you got to consider how they're going to do it. When they do it, you've got to consider, did they have any challenges in doing it? That's called looking at the logs, right? when you're studying and you're diving deep and you're looking at the logs. It's all the same. It is all the same. This is leadership. Doesn't matter if it's a human, doesn't matter if they're sitting with you or remote, doesn't matter if they're a virtual assistant or if it's an AI employee. These principles work. And I'm telling you that because we have an entire gang of AI employees that we've built, and this is how we've built them. We've been remote since 2010. This is what works. It doesn't matter.
So do you have any project management tools or software that you lean towards, having done this for 15 years, 14, 15 years?
Yeah.
That you're like, all right, here's the way that, Atiba handles, bringing the team together, remote, globally distributed, etc.
Yeah. So from a tool perspective, from that perspective, we use Slack and then ClickUp for the management of everything. ClickUp, you don't get paid for doing it. It's really that simple, right? But that keeps us organized. Now, ClickUp feeds the way my brain works, which is why we chose ClickUp. We've tried others in the past and hated them. And I know other people who use them and love them, and that's okay. And that's the beauty of the different tools when you get there. And the tools matter less if the input into the tools isn't great. And so let's talk about that for a moment. So we've talked about the fact that as a leader, you have to ask great questions. The other thing that you have to do as a leader is set vision. You're listening to me and you probably heard vision. Okay, yeah, we have a vision statement. We read that. We wrote it down and we read it at a meeting 2 years ago. Yeah, that was our vision statement. Cool. I know our vision. I know it. Cool. That's where a lot of people are, and that's not what I'm talking about. That's not at all what I'm talking about. What I'm saying to you here is, let's say you're talking with employee A. I'm just going to use A as a name, okay? And you're telling employee A that this thing here needs to move from this position to this position. In order to communicate that to employee A, you must have vision. There's a vision that you impart to employee A. You see, if you impart the vision clearly to employee A does not come back to you with questions. Employee A then knows exactly what to put inside of ClickUp or any project management tool. Now, what does that vision need to have? Who, what, when, where, why, how? You cover those and you cover them clearly. You never need to answer another question, and they know exactly what to do. And the project management system has everything it needs and everything runs.
Love it. We use the same tools over here, ClickUp, Slack. We have integrations between them. There's some amazing things for anybody listening to this. ClickUp has, I think there's a free tier. You can get started with that like today. There's templates inside of there. There's AI built in. You have to pay extra for AI, but you can leverage that platform so well to help organize, strategize, simplify, and delegate.
Yes, absolutely.
Awesome. Atiba, these have been some amazing insights. I love the conversation. Our last episode with you was fantastic as well. I hope people listening to this are able to walk away with something, at least one gold nugget. I know I've got 5 or 6. I've made some notes as we were talking today that I'm going to take back to my team. And if you were to issue a challenge to anybody listening, something that you want them to do like today or tomorrow, what would that challenge be?
Yeah. It's a great question. So if you're listening to this right now, maybe you're sitting in that place where you're thinking, maybe I'm a good manager, maybe I'm a good leader, maybe I'm not, maybe I don't even know if this matters, and or maybe you flat out realize I'm having a problem. We started by saying first, breathe, slow down, breathe, take a moment, breathe. Next, forgive yourself for what has happened in the past and set an intention to be better and different in the future. Then go to thedelegationtrap.com/chapter 1 and go read chapter 1 of the book. It's free, completely free. Go read chapter 1 in the book. And after you read chapter 1, if you see yourself in anything in chapter 1, read the whole book and watch things change in your organization.
Change doesn't happen overnight. Change also needs to be intentional, right? So take what we're talking about today, head over, check out the book, check out chapter 1, It's free. Very much looking forward to the book launch. I know I'm picking up a copy as soon as it goes up. You mentioned before we started, it's going to be on Amazon. Head over to Amazon, everybody. Go pick up the book. Level yourselves up, right? Even if you don't implement anything from the book, right? You're going to end up with this knowledge, with this insight that you can take forward into maybe other parts of your life. Maybe it's not your professional life. Maybe you do some volunteering. Maybe it's something in your family. You need to help strategize and organize there, right? At some point, you'll be able to take this and subconsciously, you'll be implementing it across everything.
Yes.
So Atiba, if anybody wants to get in touch with you, what do they need to do?
Best thing to do is find me on LinkedIn. You can go to meetatiba.com. You can find me there. Love to chat with you. Love to hear your story on delegation as well.
Love it. Atiba, thank you again so much for joining in. It's been great having you here on the Nonprofit Digital Success Podcast. To everybody listening or watching this, if you want any of the links or resources, the link to the book, anything like that, just head over to our podcast show notes page by going to nonprofitdigitalsuccess.com. Click on this episode for all the details. And until next time, keep on being successful.
Bye-bye.